Thank you, Louise. Thank you. I'm okay on the mic here. I'm the open mic in physical shape. Yeah, I got 15 minutes left on the program, so I'll try to limit it to 15 minutes. I got into this because I'm kind of walking, living history of both the Danish, African, and Caribbean background. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to tell me stories. She was a great storyteller. She was a very short, beautiful little woman, like a caricature drawing of a Sephardic Jew. She was almost African in color, but with a beautiful big Jewish nose, and a prototype of a Danish Jew. So that part of my family came actually out of Spain, kicked out of Spain because of Isabella la Católica and all her naughty ideas. Went up through France and ended up in Denmark. Actually ended up in Randers. And in Randers, they got married with some of the wolves, and the wolves had some of my relatives moved on to Ghana and settled in Ghana. He got kicked out of government because he became more African than many of his African friends, and left his government post, married Sarah. We saw her on one of your slides. So from my early youth, I had a feeling of having some kind of Jewish African mix in my blood. Many years later, in '99, I moved as ambassador and consul general to the US. Had on my plate when I arrived the hard obligation to take care of the West Indies, both the Danish West Indies, the British Islands, and that whole wonderful part of paradise that you guys have as your home. So I had to go down there, official duty. They told me when I moved to New York, don't ask us for money to go there, because we don't necessarily want to mess around too much down there, and we don't want to do too much official stuff. So if you go there, don't even tell us about it. Well, I made ways, I found means to go there and play my official role the way I felt it should be played. I felt strongly that when given a responsibility as a Danish diplomat to take care of the kingdom's interests, you should be manifestly visible in the islands. You should be there not just for transferring nice speeches. You should try to do something to pay back some of those things that you described so very eloquently. When I came to the Virgin Islands the first time, one of my very good American colleagues from the years I spent as ambassador in North Africa, Ulrik was his name. He had a Danish name, but certainly much more suntan than I have ever had. He was from the islands, Ulrik Haynes Jr. He told me that I had a cousin in the US Virgin Islands with the other name I have. I carry two last names, Metz, the Jewish name, and Mørch, which means the dark guy, because from Danish standards I'm pretty dark. So all of a sudden I found myself visiting the US Virgin Islands, and a guy called Mørch showed up. And he looked like my grandfather. So it turned out my great-grandfather had two families, one back in Denmark and one in the US Virgin Islands. So ever since I felt that I belonged to Danish triangular history. And having spent now 6 years outside of diplomacy, having spent 6 learning years doing philanthropic work in the cultural and social area, having worked on many large-scale projects, I decided that I wanted to spend the next 5 years trying to put together the ultimate cocktail of triangular thinking to make sure that we get it right this time. Because if we don't get it right in 2017, we'll never get it right. So that's... Now, how do we do that? Yesterday was a good day. I was not here, and that's not why it was good. I understood that a lot of very well-defined, established processes of doing things together were talked over, discussed, and presented. There is a sound basis already existing on the project side for just getting it done. We need financing for some of it, but there's a very ripe ground that can be developed even further. I think one of the mistakes that we do sometimes in Denmark, we tend to compartmentalize our thinking in different institutions, and they do their thing in different societies that do their things, in different committees that do their thing, and we don't try to think in a holistic way to make sure that all the bits and pieces at least go more or less in the same direction, and that we utilize the scarce resources in an intelligent manner and approach those with money in a manner that makes it possible for them to provide us with necessary funding. Now, having learned a bit on the diplomatic dancing floors, having spent years in the private sector, I was in charge of the SAS airline for a couple of years. I did commercial television. I found strange things that all of them had something to do with complex projects. So the simple idea that I got was to find a mechanism that is intelligent enough to make sure that we get the demand side on the islands right, that we Danes learn to read your demand side, that we take care of those well-stated interests, project interests, educational interests, sustainable future interests, social interests, jobs, education, research. Take care of those demand points that you make, and try to design our questions to those in an intelligent supply manner. We don't want to start out by defining what we can do to help you. Then it's going to be the old stupid imperialistic way again and again. That would be simply too dumb. And that has been maybe the way at least some of the private sectors have been operating in Denmark. I think we start with an intelligent environment on the Danish side. Researchers usually have a broader worldview. We have a wide range of Danish foundations that have already, to me, stated at least an interest in joining forces with an intelligent approach to 2017. And I had actually thought that I would spend the next 5 years or so trying to put together a national committee that could not be a muscular institutional thing holding hands with all those various interests that will have to manifest themselves in a mixed carpet of many colors that will be thrown out both in the islands and in Denmark, but could create a common umbrella under which we could put a long chain of both polished and unpolished diamonds of different projects that can make sure that we, on the one side, make sure that you in the islands get your history back. You need that, obviously. We have an obligation to make sure that we do it right. We are ourselves in the same position. We need also to get our own history back. It's not just you that miss history. If I look as an old man on Danish youth, I mean, we have an obligation also to make sure that they get their history right. It cannot be right that the only thing they know about Danish colonial history is that we were so good, we were so wonderful, we were the first to whatever, and if we traded with slaves, we did it in such a nice way. I mean, come on. Nobody has any idea today of what kind of bad histories we've been thrown. So we need also to tell our Danish people and belongs to that history. And we will, at the same time, we would never be able to get financing from Danish foundations and Danish governments, money just to tell you your history. We need to do it so that it's a common venture. We have a common cultural heritage and should treat it that way. So we have parallel histories to tell. We have different problems with those histories, but we need, for exactly the same reasons of identity or understanding. We don't know our past, how the hell we will be able to form an own future. So we have to get that thing right. So that's where we are, looking back in history.